Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Today we are going to study about Hedda Gabler Act 3. Okay, let us examine the settings of Hedda Gabler. I hope you have read, you have gone through the text of Hedda Gabler. So when we look at the settings, it is a room at Testman's. The curtains are drawn over the middle doorway and also over the glass door. The lamp, half turned down and with a shade over it, is burning on the table. In the stove, the door of which stands open, there has been a fire, which is now nearly burnt out. There are two things to be noticed. That Act 3 opens with the room completely enclosed. The curtains are drawn both over the door to the middle room and over the glass door leading outside. There is a contrast between with Act 1 and Act 3. In Act 1, the curtains were not drawn. It was light which was coming. But by now, certain kind of shade and shadows have already been looming over. Secondly, the door of the stove is open, indicating that the only door that is open is the door to stove. It's a door to fire. And there is a fire in that stove, which is now nearly burnt out. There is a symbolic, metaphorical significance of it, and also a literal. There is a literal significance of it too. Mrs. Elstead. Now, there is this kind of fire, the fire of passion, which we come across in the character of Loveberg, which was there. Fire of passion in Hedda. Now, there is certain kind of fire which is there. Mrs. Elstead, wrapped in a large shawl and with her feet upon the footrest, sits close to the stove, sunk back in the armchair. That is the condition of Hedda. She is near to that dangerous item, to the fire element. Probably there is a fire burning inside her, or probably she is near to the fire burning inside the a character who is very creative. Fully dressed, lies asleep upon the sofa with a sofa blanket over it. Now, she's sleeping, she's chilling, literally and metaphorically. She has no concern over what is happening, but she is near to the dangerous elements. And Hedda sleeps peacefully. There is another contrast between Act 1 and Act 3. In Act 1, Hedda complains that she has not slept well. But now there is a certain kind of sleep that she has taken, and she has slept peacefully. There is a certain kind of peace that has sunken in. Thea has been awake all night and is upset. The condition of Thea can be studied, can be taken as a foil, or can be studied against Hedda's condition. Thea is upset over here, whereas Hedda is not. Thea refuses the maid's offer of a fire. Hedda calls the servant to light the fire. So that is what is happening. Thea and Hedda could be studied as case studies against each other. Now there are the characters which enter and exit stage. We will see that Hedda is the central character. She will remain on stage throughout the act. Thea, who is present in the beginning of the act, she will remain coming and going on the stage. She will make an entry. She will re-enter stage when Lovebug will come and then she will leave. We will also see Mr. Tessman coming to the stage and leaving shortly after finding a letter from Aunt Julia. Lovebug, another character, another main character of the play, he will enter the stage, he will re-enter, and there will be conversation between the three actors, he, Hedda, and Lovebug. Brack, he will make appearance, whereas Hedda occupies the central place of the action. Hedda will remain constant. People may come and go, but she will remain there. At times she will be passive, at times she will be active, at times she will be manipulative, but she will remain there. Berta the maid has a minor role in continuing the action. She identifies with Tasman's interest and she is hostile to Lovebug. On the one hand, if we see that Hedda, the character of Hedda and Thea are acting as foils to each other, and Ibsen is using them to to build a contrast between two characters. Likewise, there are two rival forces in male characters, Mr. Tessman versus Lovebug. So Berta, she's minor character. She will give appearances. Initially, she will come to look at the gate and to attend the gate and and bring the letter, presumably from Lovebug, but that will be a letter from Aunt Julia. Well, she calls Lovebug a certain person and continues, we have heard enough about that gentleman before now. There is Aunt Julia is absent character over here. Berta receives a letter. She thought that it is probably from Lovebug, but this letter would be actually from Aunt Julia, whose death is being announced. It is announced that she is on her deathbed, and it will be the announcement of her illness will act as a technique by Mr. Ibsen to take Mr. Tessman out of the scene, out of the stage, so that action could be forwarded, so that Lovebug could have a possible scene with Thea and Hedda simultaneously. There is another skillful piece of the stagecraft that has been used, and it could be seen that Aunt Julia and Lovebug are never on stage at the same time. Why, dear students? Why? Are they or not? I mean to say, are the values they represent incompatible? Is Lovebug representing Dionysian side of human psyche, whereas Aunt Julia is representing the more confined, the more Apollonian, I wouldn't say Apollonian, rather more confined side of human nature? And we see her bedridden almost from the beginning of the play, just like the moral values which were bedridden and dying. People like Lovebug, not so gentlemanlike, having frailties in their character, were becoming the common man or the layman of the society. So we wonder that why these two characters, they are never present on stage at the same time. There is a contrast of the setting between Act 1 versus Act 3. Hedda awakens energized and happy, whereas in Act 1 she had slept badly. She wanted the curtains drawn. In Act 3, she opens the windows to let in the broad sunlight. Look at the difference. Is some inner side of her has awoken. What has happened? So in the Act 1, she did not wanted the sunlight in so that broad sunlight would not stream into the room. She was lonely, she was depressed, she was sad. There is a certain kind of power, aliveness has seeped in. Probably it is so because she has inspired Lovebook to return to his dissipated life, which she has idealized into courageous, free life. She expects him to return crowned with vine leaves, symbolizing his victory over society's restraints, and an assertion of the heroism lacking in her society and in herself. Well, that is a thing to be pondered upon. When this play was written, back somewhere in that society, Henrik Ibsen faced great criticism regarding the portrayal of a character, regarding the psychological depth of a character, insane monster, this Hedda Gabler. People criticized that there could be no woman like Hedda Gabler who could be so malicious, malignant, you know, malign, like she could have so malign motives, and she is still faking ladylike. She's faking herself as a lady in the society, just like Scarlett O'Hara of Gone with the Wind, written by Margaret Mitchell. But over there, Scarlett O'Hara was alive in another way. Anyways, Hedda Gabler, she wants to gain victory over the society's double standards, but she was confiscated by society. She lacked that kind of heroism, and she saw her reflection, the reflection of the side which represents her in Lovebook, and she used to believe that if Lovebook wins over the society, it is a certain kind, it will be an assertion of her own heroism. Furthermore, she has defeated Three in the struggle to influence Lovebook. So far, she is thinking that she has influenced Lovebook pretty well. With total self-confidence, she brushes aside Thee's anxiety and expresses contempt for her. You really are a little blockhead, Thee. After getting out, after drawing out the information she wanted to get out of Thee, it is very easy for her to selfishly brush her aside. It is interesting to note that both Thee and Hedda, they both are behind the same person whom society is not expecting. Okay, let's see what's next. Mr. Testman, Hedda's husband, he admits that he had a horror feeling while listening to Ilse read his book, that he felt jealous of Ilse's genius. Immediately exclaims, how pitiful to think that he, with all his gifts, should be irreclaimable after all. Testman's statement and action about the manuscript are important in evaluating Testman. What happened that on his way home, Testman has, in a way, he got hand on the manuscript of Mr. Lovebook and he took it home. Testman's statement and actions about manuscript are important in evaluating Testman. Do we take his statements and action at face value, or do we, as readers, as critical analyzers, do we really see that he is revealing a darker, less admirable side of Testman? There is Mr. Herman J. Wegand. He believes that insincerity lurking under his naive and comical guise eludes all but the keenest scrutiny. He goes on to say, however, Testman is every bit as honorable as average run of commonplace people. Is Testman an honorable man? a dishonorable man, or merely an ordinary man? You might want to consider these questions in assessing Testman. A. He tells Hedda about having the manuscript. I'm almost ashamed on Niall's account to tell you. Is he really ashamed on his own horrid feelings or acknowledged destructive desires? Aha! Does Testman find satisfaction in Lovebook's being irreclaimable because Lovebook cannot control himself? Testman, of course, has no wild impulses or uncontrollable urges and can feel superior morally to Lovebook. Lovebook is more creative and he has certain urges which he cannot control. C. Does he subconsciously want to harm Lovebook or destroy the manuscript? Was that the reason that he didn't hand it down to him? Had he handed it down, no unpleasant situation could have arrived with Lovebook and the society. So in a way, is he that kind of friend who is contributing in destroying the reputation of Lovebook? When he finds the manuscript, why doesn't he immediately return the manuscript to Lovebook? Even Hedda asked him this. Why does he tell no one that he has the manuscript? Why does he leave a note about the manuscript at Lovebook's evidence? Why doesn't he leave a note about manuscript at Lovebook's residence? Is it significant that he doesn't tell a distraught T about the manuscript when he encounters her in the street? He doesn't. In the next act, he won't. Why does he leave the manuscript with Hedda rather than drop it off on his way to see his Aunt Rena? Why doesn't he? Do his words and action prepare for his later complicity in Hedda's burning the manuscript? Somewhere a lot is revealed about the character of Mr. Testman. Underneath his decent, ordinary exterior, are there darker feelings and motives operating? Is there a discrepancy between Testman's social self and his essential basic self? If so, is that discrepancy commonplace? Is that the way most of us are? Is this how we behave as Testmans, honorable in the front of people, but yet inside our hearts there is a darker side, ready to punch upon others? Give us a chance and we will, screw you. In suppressing darker motives and impulsive, often called the shadow characteristics, the most of us, to say that, do you really think that this is something we can identify in ourselves too? The exchange between Testman and Hedda raises another question. Is Hedda thinking about possibility of destroying the manuscript? She asks whether Lovebook could rewrite it, and Testman reply about Thea's inspiration would be particularly offensive to Hedda. It is Hedda, not Testman, who thinks of and hides the manuscript when Brack appears. We are also given insight of Hedda's psyche too, but we cannot say that Testman was so gentlemanly that he had no ulterior, no darker motive. Only the ratio varies. Hedda's vision of Lovebook's dissipation as heroic and noble prompts a preference to vine leaves and her question, I suppose you mean that he has more courage than the rest. Hedda idealizes Lovebook's weakness, but is unmoved by his genius. Why is it so? Hedda never read any of the Lovebook's book. When Testman praises its brilliance, she curtly replies, yes, I don't care about that. What do these facts reveal about Hedda? Morally, spiritually, intellectually, is she jealous that T could inspire him intellectually, whereas she cannot? Ibsen often used the individuals to make revelations about the society. Do Hedda's behavior and values reveal anything about her class or her society? These are questions to be pondered upon. Let's look at Brack's role. Brack visits at the earliest acceptable time, aware of the threat Lovebook possessed to his triangle. He is eager to disparage Lovebook to Hedda. He represents a concrete reality, the sordidness of Loveberg's behavior. Brack is taking interest in Hedda. Why does his portrayal of reality affect Hedda so profoundly? Why does it cause her to lose faith in her idealization of Loveberg's wild lifestyle? What fear does his description of Loveberg's scandalous behavior stir in Hedda? There are a few questions which needs to be pondered upon. It is Loveberg, it is Brack who presents Loveberg's scandalous side to Hedda. Probably, in a way, he wants to make he is competing Loveberg, and he wants to take Loveberg's place, which otherwise he cannot take. Hedda also becomes aware that Brack, with his desire for control, can be dangerous. And there are words, Hedda's word, I am exceedingly glad to think that you have no sort of hold over me. You know, but then it is being rebutted by Brack that, beware. I'm trying to take the control and hold over you. Does her statement prepare us for the ending? Let's check it out. Let's think about it. Who is quick at picking up sexual implications and fierce scandal makes Loveberg wear, suddenly understanding that he is ruining Thea's reputation. When Loveberg announces he and Thea must part, why does Hedda involuntarily say, I knew it? No, she was feeling triumphant, wasn't she? And let's look at the control and manipulative forces. Let's examine this from the viewpoint of how she herself is looking herself as someone who is exerting some power over Loveberg's life. What does this scene reveal about Thea and her relationship to Loveberg? Are Thea and Hedda fighting over having control and certain kind of influence over Loveberg? Why does Thea cry despairingly? Then what am I to do with my life? I mean to say that, well, she is a child, she has a family, she has a life, but why she is so fixated with Loveberg? She leaves saying, I see nothing but darkness before me. Is Thea concerned with Loveberg, the book, herself, or some combination of them? And what kind of involvement she has? Think about her statement after you finish the play. Do they relate to the ending? Hedda is pregnant or physically creative. Thea is physically barren. Think of it. The creativity, study it as creative versus sterile as underlying theme of the play. Ibsen employs visually that Thea is a creative force with her abundant hair, that Hedda is not with her skimpy hair. In what ways is Thea creative? In what ways Hedda is not creative? Think of the way also that Thea has created a manuscript with Loveberg. Hedda has inspired Loveberg, but she couldn't create that manuscript. Which Hedda is burning out of jealousy. It is the symbolic child which Thea and Loveberg created. What is Thea's contribution to the book, which is the product of Loveberg's genius? Think of it. With Loveberg, the theme of creativity is extended to include the artist or the writer. Let us remember, Loveberg is a writer. Loveberg is a creative essence, representing society or the creators. Loveberg, the artist, need Thea to create. Why? He could have written it by himself, But Hedda alone as influence was not enough. He needed another co-writer too. Why doesn't he rewrite the book without her or go on to write other books? Does he need the order and discipline she provides to use his genius productively? So she has certain kind of influence over him after all. On his own, he wastes his life in riotous living. Lovborg is typical Ibsen's artist, a man who has unlimited energy and genius but lacks self-control. He needs a woman for inspiration and control. Hedda can provide him inspiration, but she could not provide him that kind of control and harmony which Thea is providing. However, in civilizing the artist, she ultimately inhibits his lust for life, so his ability to create. This is what we could call a catch 22 situation. The theme of creativity extends to Lovborg and Tessman. Contrast the kinds of topic which they write. Tessman has Hedda. How far is he a great writer now? Okay, there is a minor parallel between Tessman and Lovborg. Tessman has suitcase full of notes from his honeymoon. Wow, full of notes. Did he went there to get influence and inspiration? And he has notes Lovborg used in writing the lost manuscript. Compare Thea and Hedda as influencers. In Act 2, Hedda realizes she will not be able to live out her ambition through George. Brack squelches the possibility of a political career, and she has no interest in academic matters. So she turns her energies to Lovborg in trying to control Lovborg. Now, this is an explanation. In trying to control Lovborg, Hedda wants to give meaning and beauty to life. She wants to rise above the narrow conventionality of her own class and the smothering domesticity of the Tasmans and to experience freedom vicariously. Hedda is a coward. She wants to experience courage through Lovborg, and if Lovborg fails, she will extend it as her failure. She will see it and vision it as her own failure. Lovborg associates wild living with courage, which he considers returning to his Dionysian lifestyle. And the thing is that now I have no taste for that sort of life either. I won't begin it anew. She has broken my courage and my power of braving life out. Hedda wants to have the kind of power over Lovborg that Thea had. So she's pretty jealous of Thea. So that pretty little fool has had her fingers in a man's destiny. That is what making Hedda jealous. Why, with all her beauty, she's still not able to control Lovborg. Hedda looks for power and freedom through another rather than in herself. I mean, she could have looked for power through another means. But can the individual achieve a sense of power or freedom in this way? James McFall Lane calls her effort interference in another people's life. Ironically, such interference poses a threat to the essential self by making the individual dependent on others and places the individual in an essentially humiliating reliance on others to provide what essential self should supply but can't. Does his analysis apply to Hedda? Check it out. Why is she unable to achieve power? She could have achieved power, exerted power through the baby she has already conceived with Tasman. Why she's not thinking on those lines? Why she's becoming so destructive? Why is she unable to actualize her ideal? These two questions may be easier to answer after you have read Act 4. Though Hedda no longer believes in vine leaves, She still believes in the possibility of beauty, heroism, and freedom. What irony is there in her giving Loveberg a gun to commit suicide beautifully? Was she thinking of committing suicide herself? Does she want, in a way, Loveberg to commit suicide because she has been unable to influence her? Does he has failed in another way? She feels that she herself has been failed. How beautiful is a shot through the temple in reality? Well, believe it or not, it isn't. So, is Hedda really interested in Loveberg as a person, or is she playing with him too, as she's playing with others? The guns are symbolically complex and can be interpreted in a number of ways. A, they are Hedda's defense. They represent her freedom and her release from worldly life. They are cold and hard outside, violent and deadly in action, just like Hedda. She's cold and hard outside. She is violent and deadly in action. They are modern and contrast with the classical symbol of vine leaves. One is symbol of war and aggression, the other is symbol of peace and pleasure. Hedda obviously is a symbol of war and aggression and destructive force. They suggest futility and purposelessness of her life. Guns have a deadly function, and presumably, generally, would be able to one kid able to use them effectively. But for Hedda, the guns are a toy, a diversion for her boredom. Therefore, she has given one toy to Loveberg. Knowing that Loveberg's mental disposition is not uh, not very rational, he will not be able to take it. Still, she hands him down one gun. General Gabler's gun represents a military and an aristocratic tradition. How much relevance does military tradition have for women in general or for Hedda in particular? I mean, think about those situations, not regarding our contemporary times, when women can do anything. Well, they have won a war. Women have traveled a long journey, and now they find that they can associate themselves with gun and war without that kind of prejudice, which in Ibsen's time was prevalent. What does her inheriting this gun and this tradition suggest about the values of her class? Raised by her father, the journal, what values might she have learned from him? She's a fighter, her father was born, but she's a bit destructive because of the chains society is imposing. That was inappropriate for women of her class in her time. Her time wouldn't allow a woman of her class to exercise freedom as she wanted to experience. That is the flaw. The 19th century Danish critic George Brandes suggests that General Gabel's guns are ironic. He claims that a Norwegian general is a cavalry officer who, as a rule, has never smelt powder and whose pistols are innocent of bloodshed. I feel correct. The aristocratic class represented by the general appears even more futile and useless. So now we see certain relevance of these guns with Hedda. Hedda, as a woman, does she lack purpose in life? I mean, as traditional, um, as a woman of her times, she's pregnant too. Does women of our society or the general mind of our society views herself as such, especially when she has conceived a child too? Is she distorted by the demands of a society that offers limited roles to women? She wants to explore more. Had she been in today's world, she might have felt herself free to exercise those choices, and she might have been able to channelize her energies in a better way. All other women in the play are either serving others, for example, Miss Tasman, Thea, Diana, Berta, or are taken off, the invalid Aunt Rina, for instance. And even our incapacitated Rena embroiders slippers and willingly risks her income for George. They are either dependent, they are dependent on others. They're serving others. Except for Diana and Hedda, the women are self-sacrificing. Hedda wants to live her life for herself, refuses the role of conventional women, and she refuses to offer those lot of sacrifices and services. What opportunities are there for a woman with large aspirations like Hedda? Ibsen noted for Hedda, Hedda's desperation is a conviction that life must offer so many possibilities of happiness, but that she can't get sight of them. It is the want of goal in life that torments her. Do you think this is true for Hedda? As a woman, is Hedda denied the identity? Like, as a human being, she has been denied the identity and purpose which men have in her times. She is supposed to play out the role of conventional roles, which she cannot. Well, men may express themselves through their work, they may receive recognition through their professions. Brack is referred to and addressed as judge. Lovebird has achieved acclaim and success with his book. Desmond is waiting for the reward of a professorship. In contrast, T loses her sense of purpose and identity when she believes Lovebird destroyed their book. T was an intellectual, but again, she was not able to express herself individually. Society didn't allow it. The conventional role didn't allow it. Aunt Julia is purpose and identity as long as she has someone to take care of. So in that world, in those conventions, Hedda feels misfit. She feels that her energies are going useless and purposeless and futile as those guns with whom she usually plays with. Despite her refusal to accept a traditional role assigned to women, Hedda does not accept society's values of proper and improper behavior. This is the social sense of propriety, the rigid rules what is proper and what is not proper. That is the potent force in her life. It is also the destructive force. The propriety cuts her off. It breeds the depraved interest. Hedda is not a woman disinterested in life, rather she is full of life. Her interest in life is vivid, but depraved by the constraints that forbade her to engage directly in it. Depraved is not too strong a word for Hedda's behavior. It is justified not merely by reference to her love for unsavory, but even more by the strange, vicarious way in which she has chosen to indulge it. She has used Lovebird to do her living for her, while she sheltered behind a curtain, peered at the world outside. Hedda is fully aware of how much the manuscript means to Lovebird and T, and that it is brilliant and that it is irreplaceable. Then why she burns it manuscript? Out of jealousy? Out of the success for T and Lovebird? Why does she call it their child while she does this? I mean, is she really jealous of the life T and Lovebird might live? Is it the only child which which T and Lovebird have? And now she has got a chance to destroy it and she destroys it? Why had experienced a sense of triumph and sense of power as she burns the manuscript? For the first time in play, Hedda takes direct action. She burns the manuscript and she gives Lovebird a gun to commit suicide beautifully. It is in Act 3. Why she's feeling so powerful? Why for once, like in Act 1, she wanted to curtain everything. She wanted to hide behind darkness, but now she's feeling powerful. Hitherto, she has been an observer. She has acted indirectly through manipulation and innuendo, and she has lived vicariously through the lives of others. What kind of action does she finally take? Is it positive or is it negative? Is it creative, heroic, or is it destructive? Is this action compassionate? No, not at all. Or is it self-centered? Is it self-sacrificing or is it violent? And why she's retaliating to the society? Is she giving out to the society what society has given to her? Society has constrained her. Uh, Society has burdened her with certain conventions which she couldn't follow. Is it reaction to what society has given to her? Nice day.